Welcome from the deep. I am Mike the Finder.
And I am Book of Brett.
And today we're going to be talking about the 1974 film Black Christmas. Right at the gate here. I'm just gonna go ahead and be very transparent. This is like in my top 3 of all time. So I feel like it's gonna be really hard for me to have an unbiased opinion about this movie.
Yeah.
So with that said,
that's how I feel about The Notebook.
Yeah, that checks out too. With all that said, what is your history with this movie, if any? Have you ever seen this before?
I have. You made me watch it for the second time now. This is not a movie I would normally go out of my way to watch.
Right.
Didn't we watch one of the remakes recently?
Yes, we watched the 2000, I think it's 3. Okay, it's 2006.
Okay.
2006 is the one that we watched recently, which is fun in its own way, but also deviates a lot from this original movie. And then there's also the Black Christmas from 2019.
Right, which is your favorite one.
I have actually never even seen it because I've heard such horrible things about it.
Yep.
So yeah, we watched the original movie. So
okay, yeah. So that's kind of my history with it. The only times I have ever watched this is when you have told me I should watch this, and so that's kind of. But to be fair, this is not in my Christmas wheelhouse. Usually when I watch Christmas or holiday horror, there's like an element of comedy attached to it, and there's
like Treevenge.
And other than Barbara's drinking problem, there's really no comedy in this movie.
I mean, that's true. This is a very, very serious movie. This is a lot of people point to this as like one of the first proto slashers. There are a few from the 60s that you could argue that were the first slashers, but this movie is really looked at as one of the films that really inspired the original Halloween and therefore placed a lot of the original slasher tropes in place so that films later down the road could actually do this thing. And if you look at this, I see Longlegs in here, Halloween, Friday the 13th,
Scream.
like Scream. There's this movie.
Scream is definitely in here.
Yeah, there's so many movies that this film has inspired, and I think that's really cool. And watching it this time as an actual review did change it for me a little bit. And when you're really watching it to pick it apart cinematically, you really can really appreciate how much they were really doing in 1974. Because, dude, the cinematography in this movie is bananas. Like, it is some of the most like classic quintessential horror stuff that I think of when I think of like really tropey classic shots. It's because of movies like this.
Yeah, I was honestly pretty surprised. Like I was pretty surprised on the overall quality of it. I was shocked to see the original Lois Lane in here.
Yeah.
I was shocked to see the girl that plays Juliet from 1968's Romeo and Juliet. If you've never seen that one has its own controversy, nudity of its own, and it's a movie that has a cast that I was not expecting those two. You're
talking about Olivia Hussey, right?
Yeah. If anybody's familiar with her whole thing, there she is. I had the biggest crush on her as a kid because
I did too.
This is when I saw Romeo and Juliet. That was the first Romeo and Juliet movie I ever saw. But yeah, there's this whole thing with that movie about how there's a bunch of problems with that movie actually. So to see those two in here was a bit shocking, but then to also just see good performances in a movie like this was a bit threw me for a loop. It definitely threw me for a loop because, like you said, everything in this movie is done really, really well. The only thing that I had an issue with that really like I chuckled out of snarkiness at was the killer's phone calls, because it sounds like somebody who's not creepy trying to be creepy.
So I will say that if you put the captions on whenever you're watching this movie, I probably should have told you to do that when we were watching it. This is one of the few times I'll actually argue for captions because it really helps you figure out what he's saying and and more of the plot, just because it clearly defines everything. So anyway,
so he does say more than pig and cunt.
Yes, he does. He does say more than pig and cunt.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, if you just watch this and try to figure out what he's saying, it's much more difficult to pick up on the overall story that's kind of unfolding during each phone call. But either way, the reason that this is so well done is because this was directed by Bob Clark. If you have seen any of Bob Clark's other movies, you will understand why this movie is so high quality. This is Bob Clark here. You'll know because he is the man that directed A Christmas Story and Porky's and Baby Geniuses.
The guy that, wait. The guy that did A Christmas Story.
Yeah.
Did the horny teen movie from the 80s.
Yes. And Porky's too. And
well, they're not. Nobody's
Christmas.
gonna come. They're not gonna get somebody else to do Porky's too.
But he did Porky's 2, A Christmas Story, Rhinestone, Turk 182. I've actually heard good things about that recently from another podcast that I listened to. And then I don't know, nothing really I'm super familiar with up until Baby Geniuses and Super Babies, Baby Geniuses 2. And then in 2005, he did The Karate Dog. And in 2008, Blonde
The
and Blonder.
Karate Dog. It sounds like that sounds like if Hallmark gave up further.
When LAPD computer expert Peter Fowler investigates the killing of an old man in Chinatown, he finds the only witness is his dog, Cho-Cho.
Oh my God, Cho-Cho. That is so racist.
It's from 2005.
You might as well have named the dog Ching Chong. What the fuck, dude?
This actually, look at that. That's Mr. Miyagi.
It sure is.
Huh.
Oh, is that the ooze from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Oh, it's got Simon Rex in it.
It's got John Voight in it?
Do you know who Simon Rex is?
No, is it something rapey?
I'm going to show you real quick. So there's this super group, quote unquote, with Dirt Nasty, Riff Raff, and Andy Milonakis. They're called Three Loco.
Yep. They sure are.
This was produced, there he is right there. This was produced by Diplo, by the way. Every time I see him, this is what I think of. Every single time. I think he was also in some of those scary movies, if I'm remembering that correctly. Let me see. Scary Movie 3, Scary Movie 5. Yeah. So, there you go. Simon Rex. Goddamn. So, yes, anyway, that was quite a tangent from Bob Clark.
Jesus Christ.
Which is... Oops. So anyway, all that's to say that Bob Clark
today we're reviewing Black Christmas from 1974.
Yeah. So Bob Clark's pretty well-known guy. He died in 2007, so he's no longer around. But this movie lives on as maybe one of the best slasher films of all time, in my opinion. So we are going to go ahead and talk about that now. Do you want to give us one of your synopses of Black Christmas from 1974? Synopses?
Sure.
Size?
Black Christmas Synopsisize.
Synopsisism.
Sizer. Black Christmas from 1974 is the story of Sloth from The Goonies spending Christmas in the attic of a sorority house.
But he doesn't look like Sloth. I don't get it.
No, but he sure as fuck sounds like him.
All right. Well, the IMDb
every time I heard him, all I kept hearing was roof, baby roof.
All right. Well, the one sentence synopsis on IMDb says during their Christmas break, a group of sorority girls are stalked by a stranger.
Mine is better.
I'm eager to hear what you think about this because, like you said, this is not a movie that is generally up your alley, but this is one of my favorites. So this is one that I watch every single year. Every single Christmas, I break this movie out because I love the old 70s Christmas vibes of this movie.
Yeah.
It's really done in spades and it's fucking great. So
it's amazing how attractive the 70s look when you don't see them in New York or Los Angeles.
That's a pretty good point. Yeah. And it's also it speaks to how well made this is dirty. Too, because everything else feels dirty, especially when the film isn't. I don't know. This is like a higher budget movie, but.
Do you know what I thought when you know that scene where the cab driver comes up to pick up the house mother, and then he's like at the window, like trying to like get knocking on the window, and then we get that shot from the attic of him walking back to the cab.
Yeah,
you know that. You know what
you're talking about. Yeah.
Do you know what I thought in the context of this being in the 70s when I saw him?
What?
That man owns a home. I genuinely had that thought.
Yeah.
I know that has nothing to do with this movie, and I'm not trying to take this in a political direction. I'm just letting you know what my genuine first thought was, and it was, that man owns a home.
Yeah.
And I got sad.
And still has enough money to
happy because I got to see sorority girls die, and that made me happy.
Well, and then he still has money left over for food and other necessities.
Yeah, he can feed his children.
Like a car.
He can feed his children that his wife pops one a year out of. I was pleasantly surprised. So insert children clapping sound effect here. Usually the movies that you make me watch that are like this, you know what you're doing. And this one, you gave me something. I'm saying this as if this is a gift you unwrapped for me. But in all honesty, like, I'm shocked at how much I enjoyed this movie. I went into it thinking, okay, this is going to be another one of his. I even posted on Blue Sky, which you can find us on Blue Sky now. I even posted on Blue Sky, Mike is back, and you know what that means. He's going to make Brett watch another awful, awful horror movie.
Wasn't like that, though, was it?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't the over-the-top gore. And to be clear, I never have a problem with over-the-top gore. What I have a problem with is over-the-top gore that does not supplement a good story. And that's what so many of these movies generally tend to have on purpose.
Yeah.
And I acknowledge that they're on purpose. But that's why I never say they're shit movies. I always say something along the lines of, I don't like this, or this isn't for me. I usually acknowledge when it's clearly not for me. This movie, I would say, is for someone like me, someone who likes horror, but not to the extent that somebody that like you likes it. Somebody who loves Christmas, who loves Christmas movies, even if they're Christmas horror. My first Christmas movie of the year this year, Krampus. So I like Christmas horror. And this is the type of Christmas horror I like, where we have good cinematic elements, good things that make a movie good. Well done. Well done. Seems like a more appropriate way of using that. And it's also just a lot of fun. And I gotta say, I had one very clear, vivid first thought when at the very opening of this movie, at the first shot, the POV shot, walking up to the house, my first thought was, oh, that's what Mike was talking about with Thanksgiving.
I'm so glad you picked up on that, man.
I saw it.
I thought the exact same thing when I started watching this. I was like, there it is. Yep. There's the fucking example that I was like really thinking about and talking about.
Because had the next shot been the person whose point of view we just had, I would have known that was the killer.
100%.
So I'm learning, much like Labradoodles do.
Well, and this is why I was saying earlier that this is really thought of as like a proto slasher. It's obviously not the first slasher. Like I said, there are other movies, especially in the 60s, that you could point to, like even further back. Like I think there's a couple movies in the 30s and maybe even the 40s. Anyway, there are other movies that you can point to for like, these are the first slashers, but Black Christmas is really one of those ones that is a classic and has stayed around for so long because it is so classic. The cinematography alone it sets a bar for Christmas slashers that most others don't live up to. I'm going to be honest.
No.
Killer Santa Claus movies are one of my favorite like little subgenres within Christmas horror. And as fun as those are, they're always low budget trash. A lot of Christmas horror is low budget garbage, which is one of the reasons Krampus is so good. It's one of the reasons Black Christmas holds up. And this had a budget of $620,000 in 1974. It grossed over $4 million. This made its money back plus a lot. And there is a reason for that, is because it's good. The killer is great. There's an element of giallos in there, like whodunit style murder mystery type things. The reveal at the end is fucking great. I think the plot all the way through, there are enough interesting characters to drive that plot through without really getting bored. There's never a moment in this movie where I start to check out because of how interesting all of it is, regardless of how many times I've seen it. So I just,
that's the thing, man. It also dives into the side pieces that are constructing the story. What I mean by that is the murders that are happening that aren't in the sorority house.
Yeah,
like we have this story that branches out further than just the trajectory of the main story, which gives it substance. It makes it feel like we're in a bigger world than just the house that everything is taking place in. The only thing that kept throwing me for a loop was the police station, because we never really get to see them. We never really get to see where the police station sits in relation to the university or the sorority house. And so at first it did make me kind of feel like, wait, do they have a police station like on campus separate from the security office? But that's obviously just a small thing like that. And I'm only pointing that out to, touch on all of this, but it by no means made me go, well, that doesn't make sense. So now I hate this.
Well, I think the strongest thing this has going for it is trying to figure out who is doing all of this. And through the POV, I think that it adds an element of suspense that you don't get out of some other slasher films, because they really, really lean into Billy's point of view. He's such a strong character and you never even really see his whole fucking face. And the way that it ends is beautiful. And I love that everything is kind of left, I don't know, unsolved. It's great.
So, speaking of why he did what he did, why did he did what he did?
Well,
because I didn't watch this with the captions on,
right? And
I'm not gonna lie. It could be that I had been watching a hockey game and I'd been drinking a little, so I might have missed something. And that's my fault. And probably really poor preparation for going into this episode. But at the end of it, I was still lost on why he did what he did, because I'm not gonna lie, I spent this whole movie thinking it was Peter,
her boyfriend.
Yes.
Yeah. So
because she was doing Satan's work and trying to get an abortion. And I was like, yeah, kill the bitch. My only complaint with this movie is the phone calls, simply because they're at a certain point they do become almost comical. Like there is an element of it sounds like a squirrel mimicking a person at certain points. And so to me, it didn't take away from anything, but he's saying stuff, and a big part of it is because it's the 70s, and I feel like they were recording like the phone through an external microphone.
Yeah, probably.
And so a lot of that I could not pick up on, except a lot of the cuss words that my profane ears are so finely attuned to.
Well, yes, and those are very clear.
Yeah, they sure. Big cunt.
So one of the reasons I kind of want to talk about this a little bit is because watching this with the captions on really does change this scene. And what I want to do is kind of go through a couple of these scenes where he calls, just so you can see kind of what I'm talking about. And it kind of further reinforces the story that they're telling without actually outright telling you. This one specifically is later on in the movie. It's about an hour in, and this is when everybody goes upstairs and he calls her.
Hello, who's there?
And the operator is trying to figure it out where the call is coming from. And see,
I never picked up that she said Billy. I never heard
and
Billy.
See, it's actually laying out man's voice, child's voice, woman's voice. This is what I mean when I say it really helps you kind of dissect what he's saying, because he is speaking in multiple voices, and what he is doing, Billy, as a kid, basically the idea is Billy kind of hurt Agnes. And so Billy was sort of left up in the attic and left alone after. And this is why when we watched the 2019 version, I don't know if you remember, they actually show all of this stuff. He's fucking yellow in that one for some reason.
I remember.
But
Do you remember that?
In the 2006 version, they
they
physically show all of this stuff that is just represented on the phone in the original, which is part of the reason that I don't like the 2006 one nearly as much as I like this one, because it's not nearly as in your face about it, but it also gives this movie a little bit of rewatchability when you know what's going to happen. His whole story about being put up in the attic and forgotten after hurting Agnes and being really traumatized by his mom and dad is just so fucking insane, and he's been stuck in this fucking house that he grew up in, which is now a sorority. Here's the only problem with all of this, though, is that the very last scene, you'd be able to see that dead body in the fucking window, okay? That's just how it would fucking work.
Not if you think it's a decoration.
Number two, for Christmas, police wouldn't search the attic when they start getting phone calls and stuff like this. That also doesn't make sense. But outside,
there's a ladder, there's no stairs. You're not going to go through that effort.
But outside of all of this, this whole thing is just really well laid out, and I think he's a great fucking killer because of his backstory, because he's so fucking traumatized, and because he's just basically defending his fucking house, kind of, from these people that are in it. And in the 2006 version, we get a way deeper look into all of this, but I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
I think it's a good thing. I think the way they portray him in the 2006 version is a little bit terrible with his yellow skin.
Yeah.
Why is he yellow?
In the movie, it's said that he has severe jaundice.
Well, that would do it.
Which turned his skin yellow. Billy's insanity was also explained as being the result of severe abuse at the hands of his mother. All of this stuff isn't nearly as deep in this original, but in the second one, that's actually why... That's actually where Agnes comes from. Agnes is actually his daughter, it turns out, in the 2006 one, because his mother was raping him.
So she gave Billy's Willie a silly. What?
You know what you did.
I didn't do anything.
You know what you did. But that's why this one is better, because we can not all of it, but most of it. If we were to go through every single phone call, we could further break down what the whole story that's laid out is. I would suggest, if you've seen this before, go through and watch this movie with the fucking captions on, because it really helps you understand the story that they are telling without outright telling you, which is why the 2006 movie does what it does, but it's just really stupid. So all of this is to say is this movie really, really, really holds up on a rewatch, and especially if you only watch it once a year around Christmas, I think that this becomes a really fun tradition, and it's a genuinely great horror movie. All right, well, why don't you give me your final thoughts and your rating for Black Christmas on 1974?
Yeah, it's a surprisingly good, fun, well-crafted Christmas slasher film. Usually, so often when we get these, they're like low rent. We just did this because Christmas and blood, and that's not what we get here. We get a good story, we get good cinematography, we get stellar performances. Overall, it's just a damn good Christmas slasher film, and I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10.
Wow.
I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10.
That's kind of what I was hoping you were gonna go with, because I knew that this on the surface was one of those movies that you were not gonna like, but when you actually watch it, and especially to review it, this is just everything you want out of a Christmas slasher movie. I think.
Yeah, well, and like we've talked about recently, I've been doing a really good job, or at least I think I have been, of when I go into a movie to review it, kind of detaching from that still a little bit and getting lost and immersed in the movie.
Yeah.
And I think if you go into it with that mindset, you're going to enjoy it even more than I did, which was both analytical and immersive.
Well, I also want to say that the reason I think that this movie is so good is because this was made, what is that, 6 years before the slasher boom. So you don't have a ton of copycats running out and making movies like this immediately. There were some,
right?
But this stands on its own as a relatively original idea for when it was made, and it was before the blood and the guts of the 80s, and you can see a lot of the 60s in this film. You can really tell that Bob Clark was a humongous fan of horror movies from the 60s, because a lot of the shots that are in this are color versions of what you would see in some of the 60s movies. And that is why the cinematography is so striking and so strong. And then you put a well-crafted plot in there, a great killer with, by the way, some awesome kills, especially the one with the crystal unicorn. That kill is so well done, not only cinematically, but just like from a story perspective. I think that
it's a little lazy on Billy's part.
Oh, why?
She's passed out.
I mean, I guess that's true.
I really wanted to see her live, by the way.
Yeah, well, she's a sinner. You can't survive if you're a sinner.
I know, but that's why I wanted to see her survive.
Movies like this are what invented that.
Ruffling feathers.
Yeah, I mean, that's true, but that's also why she dies, because, you know, the most pure one, other than maybe the girl that gets killed at the beginning, that's the one thing. The girl at the beginning probably should have been the one that survived everything.
Yeah.
But, you know, whatever. Regardless, I think that this is one of the strongest proto-slashers out there, and that if you're looking for a Christmas horror movie, this is one of the best places to start. Whether you like old horror movies or not, this stands up regardless of whether or not you like old movies, because I know that is a very niche thing, especially these days with all the new art house stuff and all that stuff. That's not what this is, but this is also not just blood and violent trash. So this strikes a really good balance of being artistic while also being a great horror movie. And I think that is why so many people love this movie to this day. So for me, this is a 10 out of 10. This is classic horror. Top 3 of my favorite horror movies of all time. It's just up there for a very good reason. So you got anything else you want to say about this?
No, not really.
Okay.
Just go watch it.
Yeah, go watch it. It's free on Tubi right now, as well as a slew of other places, I believe. Also, the Scream Factory version that they have, I know it might have been out. It might be out of print now, but if you can get your hands on that, the quality on that is ridiculous. Also, the waxwork vinyl soundtrack to this movie is insane, and it has some of the phone calls on there, which is also why I'm more familiar with those phone calls. It's creepy and it's worth a listen to at Christmas because it also has that 70s Christmas music and vibe on there. A lot of choir and stuff like that in there too. So check all that stuff out. But yeah, thanks for watching. If you got all the way to the end of this, we really super appreciate it. This is why we made this episode, for people that get all the way to the end of it. So thank you, sincerely. Thank you to all the support we've been getting over the last few weeks. I know I wasn't around last week. Brett made a great video. I will link that down below. Last week of Abandoned from 2022. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So go check out that video as well. It's a way different format than these. We do those every once in a while, and there are also playlists if you want to see more of his, if you want to see some of my solos. All that is available on the channel, so make sure you subscribe for more. Thanks for watching. We will see you guys next time from the deep. Bye-bye.
Ta-ta.